still playing catch up on our what sold videos, and so we're just going to hit the highlights for the first 2 weeks in August. And actually, it seems like it was a pretty good couple of weeks. It feels like it's even better than my September has been. But we're going to start right off with eBay. We're talking about one of the Kliban mugs, Kliban cat mugs, sold for $19.99. They are just slowly kind of trickling their way out there between eBay and Etsy. Okay, next up is just something, not a huge dollar amount. This only sold for, I believe, $20, but it's a Lefax Family Budgets little book, and it's from like the 60s. And I just wanted to point it out just because it might be something that gets overlooked. And it's, there's still a market for these types of things. If you're looking in the office section, old ledgers, things like that, people just might find it interesting, or they might repurpose it, or they actually want to use it. They prefer the paper and pen method. Okay, so we usually talk about personal planners, things like this, day timers, Franklin Covey. This subject usually comes up at the new year, right? People with their resolutions want to get organized and things like this. But when I find these, I've just been listing them right away. So we found this day timer, and I noticed it right away because it was very 90s looking, it was the tapestry of a library, and this ended up selling for $30 within a couple weeks of being listed. Got a lot of attention on the different platforms I put it on. Okay, so whenever I see a necklace like this that has the bezel set crystals, which that's what these are. See the little black crystals? They're bezel set, what it's called. It's not like prongs or anything that holds it in. It's just a kind of piece of metal that goes around the crystal. In any case, sometimes they end up being plastic, but whenever I see a necklace like this, I always look for the Swarovski mark. So I look for the little swan, and then I know that the black stones are actually crystals. This one was a little bit different because it had the caged pearl kind of thing going on as well, and that ended up selling for that full asking price of $39.99. Then right beginning of August, we had started listing our backlog of shoes. I think I mentioned in the past. And these Crocs, which I can't even remember where we picked them up, sold really quickly. So winter boots just started selling right at the beginning of August. So they're Crocs, but they're like poofy, right? They have like faux fur inside and everything. So something different I hadn't seen before. Then through these couple weeks, we had, a smattering of these Lenox Spice Garden spice jars. This one sold for $29.99. It was just the pepper. And then I didn't put a tab for all the ones that had sold, but I sold a few more within those 2 weeks. Now, this is a pair of suspenders that actually did take quite a while to sell, but they, I think it was when they finally did sell, it was because I had like ended and relisted or something like that. And they ended up going overseas. I'm trying to think, maybe like the UK or something like that. So you just never know. Some things might just need extra time. They might need a refresh, looking like a new listing. But anyway, they were new. It was a Montana lager. It said, I think the brand was Welch. And those sold for $40.99. Yeah, it shows that on there. Then I put this up here as just a little example. As we were talking in the flatware video about doing mixed lots. Like this is kind of what I was talking about. This actually worked out. 6 pieces. None of it was really worth, you could. Like I could have maybe listed the dinner forks separately, but then it might have been harder to sell the knives and the salad fork. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes you make up these little lots that have something desirable in it, and the person says, oh yeah, well, I could use a couple more knives and things like that too. So it sold for $27.99. Okay, so one day I was at Goodwill and I was looking at the bra section, and I happened to notice that there was a bunch of new with tags bras. Now, I've talked about this brand on the channel before, I believe. You guys helped me with the pronunciation, but of course I forgot to double check it. Is it just Cacique? That's my guess. Anyway, they were larger sizes and they were new with tags. So I have sold a handful of them already. I think I got like 7 or 6 or something. Have not listed them all. I don't know why. They're the easiest things to do in the world. I'll get to them. Anyway, this is the first one that sold for $30. I think I paid a couple dollars a piece. I think they had them at like $2.99 and I had a coupon that day. So, okay, what is next? So this pair of shoes, I had mentioned this brand in a recent haul video that I picked up some shoes at the bins, and they're Nike, but they say Nike SB. Let me see if I can get a little closer. Stefan Janoski. Anyway, they're skateboarding shoes, and I paid $3 at a yard sale this summer, and got $46 for them, so that was a good deal. Here's another kind of fun thing I like to sell. This is Dansk. The pattern is called Brown Mist, and the plates, I've sold the plates and smaller bowls and things like that, but I was leaving the thrift store one day and they had this out in like the furniture, and it's a larger bowl, so it's a 8-inch vegetable bowl, and as you can see, it's Dansk. I said that already. And I sold it for $50.99. I think I paid like $6 or something like that. This was probably my top value sale of those 2 weeks. These are rhinestone earrings from the 80s, and I took an offer for $85. Now they were, as you can see, kind of like Saturn. They're very glitzy, very glam. They were missing stones, mostly down below on the bottom. But it's so overall like a mirror effect that I don't even think you would notice that anything was missing. But $85 I felt was a decent offer. There wasn't, an exact comp I could use or to hold out for something. And so I ended up just taking the $85. And then I wanted to share this Starbucks mug. We usually pick up these vintage Starbucks mugs before they got all like commercial and collectible and whatever. They used to just make stainless travel mugs and just put Starbucks on them. Nothing fancy. But anyway, this sold for $29.99. It was made in Korea. Okay, shout out to Mr. Pish Posh on this one. So when I buy, sometimes at the thrift store, I buy bags of flatware. And I'm not selling all the flatware that ends up being in it. So I have a box where I just throw a bunch of stuff that I either have sold at yard sales or I just redonate or something like that. So we were doing the cleanup, we were moving our flatware, and I don't know, these were in that bin. It could have been a day that I was just like disgusted with like I don't have time for this, and I'm like, they're not worth that much, and I just threw them in there. But in any case, Mr. Pish Posh has his own eBay store, which comes in handy, for kind of selling off extras of the stuff that I specialize in. So he decided to just make up a lot of like mixed stainless flatware. It would be good for like a camp or someone who just needed large amounts of flatware, but it didn't matter how valuable they were. We didn't put anything damaged or anything like that in there. Just stuff that I didn't want to list like separately, or the quality just wasn't quite good enough for me to list. So anyway, as he was going through them, he found this IKEA flatware, and he was like, you know what, I'm just going to list it in one little lot for $35, and like it sold like within a week. So he rescued some otherwise flatware that would have made it into some, mixed lot that no one would have cared about. So glad he was double checking what I was doing. This was probably our second best sale. These sold for $69.99. And I got them at Goodwill. They're Olakai. The little hook label or logo right there is what you want to look for. They were at Goodwill and they were like $5.99 and new with tags. So I could not pass that up. Now, I told you in a previous video that I had been doing more shoes because Goodwill had been dropping their shoe prices. And then we get shoes at the bins. And then, of course, I go to Goodwill later that day, and it seems like the shoe prices are creeping back up again. So at least I still have the clearance store. And, you know, right now at the clearance store, there's a lot of sandals and things like that. So even though those do sell kind of all year round, you know, people are looking more for boots and things like that. So, you know, I've been selling like loafers and things as well. So a nice price, nice find at the Goodwill, and a nice selling price on those. Alokai. Okay, so I've told you before we were moving our inventory off of Ruby Lane over onto eBay and to Etsy. My son was helping me do that. And so one day he did, you know, like 10 listings or something. And he had moved over this International Sterling Swan Lake teaspoon, which I had picked up at an estate sale for like $1. And so as soon as we cross-posted it, it sold. And so I like quick looked through the drafts and I was like, honey, I said, there was a salad fork, you know, also new in the package. I was like, can you quick draft that and we'll get that launched? And so sure enough, he runs over, he does it. I get it launched and no joke, it sold like immediately. And so for another $30. So I thought, oh yeah, for sure. It's the same buyer, was just keeping an eye out. 2 different buyers. It like blew me away. I was like, oh, okay. So International Sterling Swan Lake in new condition, I guess, is very, very desirable on eBay. Maybe not so much on Google because Ruby Lane, they weren't selling over there. But they did sell on eBay. I'm going to sneeze. Okay, maybe not. Okay, and then this is just a fun sale that I love to share these because it's just these random things I know nothing about that I see at the bins at our little clearance store. And I'm like, I'm just going to grab that and see what happens. So these, I mean, I did a little research at the store, but the brand is Golf Pride. They are basically just grips for golf clubs. And there were 7 of them. And they sold like within, I don't know, 2 or 3 days for $38. And they were on a rack that they were just pulling out at the bin. So I was there kind of right place, right time. Then you're probably familiar with Laurel Birch. I just wanted, you know, I talk about her with jewelry. Sometimes you might see things like her designs on fabric, on, what do you call it, like tote bags or purses or things. So I just wanted to share the fact that I had found this belt and the buckle had a Laurel Birch stallion design on it. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and that sold for $30. And then let's pop over to Posh, just sharing one of the Le Creuset things I shared last time. This was a Poshmark sale, was probably the highest I've gotten for one of these, but it sold for $67. And I just sold one the other day on Posh for $50. So, you know, I could get a little bit higher prices on Posh generally, but I also think I have to wait a little while maybe before I list the next one, because every time I list one, you know, it seems like the demand is a little bit lower. So if I wait a couple of weeks and list another one, you might get a whole new set of eyes on it. So I think I only have like 2 left. I'm not sure. And Mr. Pishmash might just go ahead and list one. I don't know what he'll end up doing. Okay, and I wanted to share this beanie hat, which I thought was kind of interesting to get $30 for a Banana Republic pre-owned merino wool stocking cap. Kind of a unique design with the slouchiness of it. But anyway, that sold for $30. And that was listed last season, so it did take a little while. Now these, what do you call them? Sandals. I think I had bought these for my personal use and then had just never ended up wearing them. So I was cleaning out my closet and I was like, oh, let's just list them. And they sold pretty quickly for $24. Just the brand is Born. Those little shoe foot thingies or whatever, I had seen, I think, a link that Ginger Marvin had shared. And so I grabbed some for things like this, things with sandals that kind of can hold up like the strappiness a little bit better, but not be distracting. So I can put a link to those down below as well. And, oh, just a reminder, Poshmark, I have to remember to cross-list more flatware, especially newer brands, newer styles and things like that. Although vintage can do well over there too. But I wasn't going to get much more. I didn't have these listed for much more than this, maybe 18, like over on eBay, and I would have taken an offer there too. So $14, and these were out the door. Camper, I don't remember. These were my son's size, and I have a feeling I picked them up like wanting him to try them on. Maybe he did try them on, but at some point Mr. Pishposh just found them in the garage and he listed them. So they took a little while to sell, but the brand is Camper. And it's a brand we've sold with kind of mixed results. But these were just a nice basic kind of chuck-a-boot. And they sold for $45. Wallace & Barnes. I wanted to share this with you in case you didn't know this label. So Wallace & Barnes is actually a subline of J. Crew. So just so you know. And it does have a pretty good following. This was a nice kind of heavy duty shacket and workwear type thing that sold for $30. And then this was just a hat we probably picked up at the bins last year or the year before, while it was the other place when they had all the hats put together. And, just been sitting and listed forever. And then out of nowhere, it sold for $25 on Posh. And then Patricia Nash, I picked this up at Goodwill one day. Even though it's distressed, some of her stuff is intentionally like that. I think there was supposed to be like a little loopy hand strap kind of thing, but that wasn't there. But that still sold pretty quickly for $35. So I generally, if the price is right, I will pick up Patricia Nash type things. And I think you'll see one in the next What Sold video as well. Let's pop over to Etsy. Had a few good sales over there. Some highlights from that. Hot Joe is the brand. Let's see, where does it say it? On the bottom. And I always double check that they have their little Hot Joe lids and everything. This was just plain black, but it sold for $35. Then this was kind of fun. Also got these at the bins or the clearance store. So back in the day of my early reselling days, we would sell these Sultan. I don't even remember if we sold the whole thing or we tried to sell it. It was like a Sultan yogurt maker. And sometimes we just sold like the glass jars. They're like a milk glass that you put, that they make the yogurt in. And I don't even remember what happened, if they're not worth selling or whatever. But one day at the bins, there was the old yogurt maker. And I think it was a bolo for a little while. And then in a baggie were these lids. And they were, the jars that were in the yogurt maker already had lids. So these were like 5 extras. And so I just threw it in my cart. Hardly going to pay anything because it's super light. But I listed them and they sold, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks for $24 as replacement lids for those glass jars. So keep your eye out. It's probably the most valuable part of the whole thing at this point. Okay, $14 for this beat up spatula. So don't underestimate the vintage spatulas, even with all that chrome wear and everything like that. She even sent me a picture, I think in her feedback or just said, I'm trying to remember if this is the one. One of them I had was even split a little bit. Anyway, she just said it was a replacement for the spatula she'd been using. And so she was thrilled with it. Never know. Okay, fun sale. This does, if you're familiar with mid-century stuff, yes, this does look like Catherine Holm, but it's plastic. So Deca is the brand, the plastic brand. And as you can see, it's plastic. And let's see if we can see the markings there on the bottom. Anyway, I picked this up a long time ago. It was kind of beat up. We used it as a fruit bowl for a long time in our kitchen. And then we just all, just decided, you know what, this thing just sits in our kitchen and we don't really use it that much. And so Mr. Pish Posh magic erasered some of the white, had, utensil marks, whatever. Cleaned it up the best we could. And it sold for $49 because they're really not that easy to come upon. So that was kind of fun. I probably had that thing for like 8 years or something. Sold another Kliban mug on Etsy. This one was catbird in the tree in disguise. Kind of funny. Okay, over in the pattern shop, I didn't share all the different patterns that sold a lot. Very bread and butter. Like this one, $10 for just these basic blouses, which I think is not bad. This was a fun one. I just kind of went with my gut on pricing on this one. It's a McCall's Hobby Horse pattern, and I don't think there were a ton of comps or solds, or I found one comp at $25. So I said, let's do $25, and it sold, maybe within a month for that full price. Again, some bread and butter, Vogue for $13, and another good one was the Simplicity costume pattern for $25. Then I'm just going to share a couple Mercari sales. I don't have a ton of Mercari sales, and it's not my favorite platform, and I a lot of times give it up, and then I decide to do it again. So anyway, we just, again, trying to lot things up, move things out. Cufflinks can sell. Tie clips can sell. They're super slow. Sometimes we had gotten these like in a big lot, and I'd kind of cherry picked what I wanted out of it. So in any case, we just decided to lot this all up and get it moved, and it moved on Mercari. So that was kind of cool. $50 for that set. And I also sold this, Mercari is also good for partially used, although I can't remember if this was full or not. Appears mostly full is what I said. So you maybe can't list that on, well, maybe you can. I don't know. eBay's gotten pretty strict as far as their used beauty products, so I always just throw them over on Mercari, and that sold for $39.20. Okay, that was the first 2 weeks in August. Hopefully you guys had, a good selling month in August. Let me know how your September versus August is going. And if you want to share any amazing finds or sales or anything like that, as usual, leave me a comment down below, and we will see you soon.